Campaigns are getting creative when it comes to attracting people to vote, especially in the age of social media. Scott Mitchell talks to experts in this morning's The Hot Seat.
Welcome to Hot Seat. Dr. Kim Gaddie, Ryan Welton, Director of Digital Content at Griffin. Dr. Gaddie is a lecturer at the Price School of Business at the University of Oklahoma. Go Sooners. Okay. This is my favorite Truman comment has always been, the only thing we don't know is the history we haven't read yet. And we're talking about digital this morning, and the only thing I think we don't know about in these campaigns is what's going on behind the scenes with digital. Dr. Gaddie, let's start with you. There is an effort to have people show up to vote in a few days for this presidential election, but digital is where it's at, according to everything I read and what Ryan tells me. Mm-hmm. So unpack what we don't know that is going on behind the scenes during this presidential election to turn out the vote.
I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a lot we don't know, right? I mean, we know and we see all the stories about the tools candidates are using, and it's not that we're abandoning all of our traditional tools as candidates, and the campaigns are using them. We see the yard signs, we see the commercials and all of that stuff, but we just have this arsenal of new tools that we are trying to use to reach voters. If you followed the Democratic National Convention, you saw stories about how the media room for the Harris-Walz campaign was just flooded with influencers and giving them access to the campaign, right? And they're trying to do that to target not just the young voters, right? But in my courses and when I teach students about digital marketing and social media marketing, I am very quick to point out there are no more mass audiences. It is about targeted advertising, targeted messages, and social media and digital tactics give us that weapon, right? It's all about finding these communities of these people and these communities that erupted right after Harris was, named the candidate, and the wealth of tools that candidates can use to meet voters where they're at.
And it's not just about a singular medium or distribution channel. One of the things I heard on a podcast I love called Pivot is they talk about this being the audio election and former President Trump's appearances in the manosphere on those podcasts, and then maybe the single most important podcast to have been utilized in this campaign, Call Her Daddy by Alex Cooper. Kamala Harris appeared on that. Podcasts 25 years ago were a thing that was coming along, but in the past decade, it's really gained steam. And some people might call this the TikTok election or the TikTokification of the political election, but it's also the podcast election.
At the end of the day, we have, as candidates in campaigns, they've got all these new tools and they're trying them. And not every campaign is making as much use of them as others. I think it's fair to say, except for the fact that we can't see behind the scenes of what every campaign is doing. Visibly, it looks like the Harris-Walz campaign is far and away making use of these tools as opposed to, anyone else. But we can't see everything. The question is, can we now find a way to leverage momentum, enthusiasm for whatever candidate at whatever level race it is, national level, local level? Can you use it to get people to the polls?
I think everything you talked about just there, it can be applied to the business owners who are watching this, entrepreneurs. It applies to every field. And I would just encourage people watching this to consider two things: their consumption, but their awareness of how these campaigns are working. Understand that when you see a certain ad or a certain video time after time after time, to recognize that you're being targeted. It's okay to seek out different types of content on different platforms and diversify your portfolio. I think it's really important.